Well, everyone, how are you doing? We're coming to our final episode of this Euros magazine with Sophie Lawson, the best and brightest expert when it comes to women's football. But actually, this episode is all about me because, England should really send me something. Actually, their training grounds was like 800 meters away from my home where I'm recording this. I never went there, but it was there. It was very close, because I'm their luckiest charm, aren't I, Sophie?
Yes. What was that? Okay. Boringnesses. Followed by a goal 3 minutes later.
Hey, it's been like four times now, right? I'm not.
Every
If
time.
we go and look into the timestamps, you will see it's usually like 2 or 3 minutes before the goal is made, right?
It is. I was messaging a friend, and 6 minutes before the goal, 6, 7 minutes before the goal, I messaged and I said, "Is Spain about to fuck this?" And she said, "Well, why?" And then yeah, 6, 7 minutes later, I was like,
So when you got
So
my
yeah,
message, you were like, "Oh yeah, they're about to fuck this."
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think you could feel it coming as well. Uh, it was much better second half from England. And I think you could feel like throughout the first half, it felt like, oh, Spain will get a second. And then into the second half, it felt like Spain were not going to get a second. So
Yeah, it's true. I mean, yeah, it's again now we don't we shouldn't get into the mistake that a lot of people here in Switzerland are making, thinking Switzerland had the great Euros. Same for England. You won the title. Very proud, very happy for you.
it wasn't good
Uh,
football.
I'm happy for the three Brits I know and cherish dearly. You, but you didn't like it. My friend Rob Appleby and the bloke from Beard Meets Food. Those are three Brits I know and cherish. I'm sure I'm forgetting people who I actually know and like, but those three people I am happy for. Anyone else, and also that British team, that English team, nah, you should do better, even though you won.
Yeah, the football wasn't much right. This was their best knockout game, to be fair to them. Jonathan Liu pointed out, England led for 1 minute of the knockout rounds. 1 minute they led, which which tells its story.
Oh, well,
Um,
that was the game against Italy, huh?
yeah, that was the 1 minute
Yeah.
left of extra of stoppage time on extra time, which is crazy. They did it the hard way. They played. They weren't the best team in any of the three games, but they scored the same amount of goals, or one more than Italy. And they didn't give up. Spain could have won that game. They had plenty of chances. Sweden had their chances to score a third. Italy had their chances to score a second. Uh, Sweden could have defended better, either for first or second goals. Italy didn't have to give away a penalty, and likewise, Spain.
And Mrs. Sitter.
Yeah, and Spain. I mean, that sec when Salma came on, and someone's already pointed out she's probably going to get a whole mess of abuse and racist abuse because she was terrible when she came on, and she kept missing easy chances, and she missed a penalty. But she's not been in form this season. She's not been in form for a long time, and she's not a number nine. Bring on Martin Purito if you're taking off Esther and need someone in the box. Don't Salma will run. She'll stretch the play. She's not a natural. She's not a number nine, and she kept missing chances, and she kept taking them as well when she wasn't in form, and she should not have been. I don't know why she
Yeah.
was in that first run for penalties
I
today.
mean, I'm all against
It's
the
just a shame.
abuse, especially the racial abuse. Fuck off with that, right? We don't need that. We never needed that in the men's game. We don't need that in the women's game. Um, I liked my joke, Salma para nada.
Yeah.
But I completely agree with you. This is one of those situations where the coach is not only harming their team, but also harming the player. It's doing them a disservice. Of course, you'll say every player wants to play, but sometimes it's better not to throw someone into a situation like that. The fact that she's not in form, of course, uh, is annoying, but you still will try to put in Salma Parayuelo, one of the world-class players, if you have her on the bench. But not in this situation, not for that role.
My
You said it nicely. Prieto was the one you should put in or leave Esther in, and
but
put Parayuela in a different role, in her role, in a winger role, and maybe
but
you can.
it's not just that. Tomei took Lucia Garcia and she took Alba Redondo with her. Neither of them gone to the pitch at all. Martin Brito played, I think she came on as a sub in the first group game. We haven't seen her since. Maybe she came on as a sub
She played in
like at the
the
German game, didn't she?
semi-final, I
That was it.
think.
But she didn't like. We haven't seen much, and we have seen no. We saw no Redondo, no Garcia. Like, if you want to bring on a centre forward, someone who's going to be in the box, you have three options on the bench. They are all, rusty because you're not playing them. But I mean, what? I mean, imagine Lucia Garcia running at the England defence in like the 80th minute. Like that would have terrified them. You know, anything more than bringing on a player who clearly is a favourite because she's kept playing Paraguay, but she's not in form. And I think we've talked about as well with the Serena coaches will have their favourites, but I just like we're bringing players you have no intention of playing. Why even bother with 23, right? But it and then
Uh,
taking Alexia off. I like bringing on Claudia Pina, but taking Alexia off for Pina is crazy.
I mean, our guys at the commentary, they were, well, she has to be injured.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you would never take her out. I don't know if she had a knock or something. I mean, she wasn't having the best game either way,
she
but
she had a couple of moments.
it's not the thing you do to a world-class player like that if she's still able, physically able. I think if we go to the first half, Spain played it well, but again, they ran a little more than against Germany and against Switzerland, but still not running. And you need to run. Honestly, you need to run because that tiki taka won't get you far if you can't take any chance, you know. Even though we have a colleague on Twitter, a French colleague who has been about Bonmati being useless. The good players are like Russo. They decide in the important moments. Bonmati has also decided in many important moments. Uh, but they should have actually tried to shoot. First of all, shoot. Just try to score at some time, which they didn't. But then run. You need to run. You need to run, especially against that England defense that isn't too, what do you say, too well oiled. Because you notice that Millie Bright is missing left and right. So just run, do some runs, and that's what I wanted from them the whole tournament. They only did those goddamn runs against Portugal.
They I, I was shouting at the TV in Spanish for all the good it did. One of my big bugbears in football, all football, especially when I'm in at stadiums and I can see when players will just pass ahead of them or they won't look. And they won't look at the player who's got loads of space on the other side of the pitch. They won't look for the switch. They will just play into traffic. And repeatedly, Spain were playing in traffic, into traffic, into traffic. And don't get me wrong, they were getting out of it a lot because they've got such fantastic close control. But you've got space. You can, and so often it was the wrong pass today. Again, it was poor decision making. And I'm just like, stop passing into traffic for the love of you've got players in space. And I thought they were taking up some not the best off the ball positions as they were attacking and as they were defending. They were getting played through a bit, which was surprising when they were defending. And they just weren't, it wasn't as it should have been, even though they had that nice passing was the player on the ball was finding the right pass or a good pass, I should say. It wasn't necessarily the right pass. You needed to kind of have that look up and see what the better options were, and they weren't doing that. They're playing into traffic and they were making it hard for themselves. And when they score, it's because suddenly there's space, and England were not letting them have space. And then as soon as they've scored, England sort of tying up second half as well. There's not the space, and they again stop looking. They're not looking to how they can stretch England, how they can poke holes if there aren't any. And it's just so frustrating because they've got all the talent in the world, but if you're not being smart about what you do, you're not gonna get anywhere.
That's exactly that. So the goal happens in like 5 minutes where they try to broaden the game to stretch it out, and then they stop doing that. And if there has ever been a team, which that old saying is true for, that offense is the best defensive, the attack is the best defense. I don't know how you say it in in English, but I'm sure you guys have the same saying. Um, it's Spain. They need
Yeah.
to be attacking all the time because that's the only way they know how to defend. And they haven't been. And I mean, kudos to England. What did they change in the second half to make it happen after I said they were boring? Because for the first 10 to 15 minutes, they were really boring because they were
Uh,
doing everything right. Get me right. They were doing everything right. And so the game started being boring.
you know what happened. I mean, other than the fact you sent me a message, is Chloe Kelly came on at the end of the first half, and
Ah,
Chloe Kelly,
yeah.
for the first half an hour she was on the pitch, she was causing all sorts of problems. Her impact started to fade a bit, and then England's attack started to fade with it. But she had instant impact. And I think when you look at that ball that comes in, it's not a good jump from André. It's a bit of a clumsy header from Russo. She falls over, but hits the back of the net. But that was, I think, England all throughout were actually attacking really well. They weren't, especially second half, they weren't countering. They were occupying that Spanish back line. They were pushing up in the final third, and Spain were letting them. At one point, Leah Williamson had run up and was in like the opposition box at one point. You think, well, how are you allowing this as Spain? Why push them back, play around them? What are you doing? But they got too lackadaisical. They Spained.
I think, I mean, again, Chloe Kelly, that's it's remarkable how she did. And you were right about the occupying the space and not countering. That's what they tried to do the first 25 minutes, and it was clearly not working. And then you saw a Spain that maybe is just too calm. I think they never felt the spark, except maybe in extra time later on, but before, they were really, really calm. They were like, yeah, yeah, we're gonna bring it into the goal at some point, and that didn't happen. What surprised me was two things. Actually, Wichmann doing the changes earlier this time, and Ajeman not really getting through. So that's something Spain did well. But the other thing was um, Montserrat Tomé changing so late. She brought on Vicky Lopez and Parayuelo, which we have already discussed. Parayuelo not in this position, should have brought her on as a someone else who's doing extra runs, who's trying to broaden the game, who's trying to bring some speed. But also, Lopez came in, I think, late,
Yeah,
almost in added time or only, right? She only got like 3 or 4 minutes in regular time, and then she was there for the extra time. That's when she actually played well.
yeah. So Pina came on about 71 minutes in, and I wanted to see Pina pretty much on the hour. For me, she was a bit late, but then, as you say, Vicky and Salma came on in the 89th minute. I don't
What's
know what.
that?
I mean, you playing for extra time at that point, you think you can do it. And then the next change was Layla or Harvey coming in for Olga, which is she was just tired by that point. But again, throughout all of that, you've got Redondo, you've got Lucia Garcia, you've got Martin Prieto, you've got attackers you can bring on. Hey, you're in a shootout. Do you want to maybe bring on some attackers for that? No. Um, don't make Salma take a penalty. It was incredibly frustrating because they had so many chances in extra time. And they also just kept slowing it down and slowing it down. I think right on sort of the stroke of extra time, half time, and you're looking at the clock counting down, thinking, okay, well, get in you've got everyone around the box, get it in. Just pop, just
The
cross it, just
one
give
in
yourself a
the
chance.
93rd, when it was for the final whistle, they had like 2 minutes of possession around the box with like 8 players, and kept doing those small passes, those in German we say klein klein, right? And they no one tried to shoot, no one tried to do anything. That was really frustrating. I also think she should have changed earlier, should have tried to keep it within the 90 minutes, not only because it's better for her, but also because England have so much momentum from all these extra times they've been playing. For England, this was just another day at the office. They were like, "Oh, nice! We get to go to Greg's again."
Uh, yeah. I also look. England haven't lost a shootout under Serena. Um, Hampton's saving penalties. Players, you've got Chloe Kelly, who you know is going to take a better one after the bad one. Against Italy, I just, I know it's not the Spanish thing to be aggressive and to just, you know, but God, they needed it. They needed something different because, as we said, so last time, I think the time before, they just think that they can just pass, 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 and the gap will open up as it has against other teams. And England weren't going to let that happen. They did, but then they still couldn't score when Spain got into such great positions. Um, and I think you can feel it as the game goes on, even if you're not there. You can feel the momentum. You can feel like I don't know if you do this, but when you see players step up for penalties, you go, all right, she's going
Yep.
bottom left. Okay, she's going to miss. That's going to be saved. She's missing the target. I watched as Adana stepped up and I was going, she's gonna yeah, this is going to be saved. This is not hit.
Same.
This is not hitting the back of the net.
I was on the money with all the three of that missed. I saw it right away.
Oh God, seeing Salma step up, you know she's missing the target,
And that
and it's just
face she was
why.
making, you were like, "Oh, she's gonna bottle it." You knew it.
And it's
Uh,
it's it's so upsetting. It comes down to that. Um, but I just why they could have. There were so many things they could have done differently. Whether it was talking about the players or you're talking about Monse, it could have been different. And it's just frustrating. I think I keep wanting to be frustrated with Spain because they could have done more. It feels like England won, but Spain lost. Spain threw
yeah,
that
it was
away.
Spain who lost it because again, going back to the bloke who did the commentary here in Switzerland, he went on about, well, this is the first time we see a team wanting to play against Spain, and everyone else just keeps locking down space and locks themselves in behind, parks the bus, which I think it's not true, not exactly true, and also I think women teams, and I'm sorry for that cliche, don't know how to park the bus. I think this is something they still need to learn. I haven't seen a team that knows how to effectively park a bus. Maybe when Barcelona got out of the Champions League 2 years ago, maybe there was some bus parking, but please enlighten us if you know better. If you know, and because I haven't seen a team able to really park the bus. England wasn't trying to park the bus. England actually wanted the ball, wanted to play, and Spain never capitalized on that. They had so much ball. They had actually a lot of forward momentum, but they never finished in the last third. And I think this is maybe showing something that we also saw with the men a couple years ago. The Barcelona school only gets you so far. Sometimes you need to break it up. You need to throw an Eto into it. You need to throw an Henri into it. You need to throw even a Ibrahimovic. You need to change something up so that you get some more grit and some more punch power.
Yeah, I think that's why I've liked seeing Esther at this tournament, but she was having chances and she was definitely causing some problems for the defense in the knockouts, but she hadn't scored since the group stage, Esther, which was a shame because I thought that did help. And just Spain themselves just went back to playing like they like to, as if she wasn't there at points as well, which is you fall into the Barcelona style. In terms of bus parking, I think there's a couple of things. I think if you look at England in their two games in the Nations League against Spain this calendar year, they have had certainly not more possession than Spain, but they have had the most possession of teams Spain have played. So England can play aggressively against
I
Spain.
think the same for today, right? I think they had more than everyone else.
Yes. So Spain had been averaging out 72, 73% possession. That's all games before today. There was a point where England had over 40%, which really is tells you there's quite a swing there. Um, but I think that in terms of bus parking as well, I think the speed of women's football in which it's developed in recent years as well, so much like men's football, the focus is always going to be on attackers. I want to be a goal scorer. I want to be an attacker. And a lot of players don't want to be defenders. And it's not a sexy position. It's not really one where we look at, oh God, you could be this. And you even have a lot of your fullbacks are actually just wingers. In fact, we saw that with Germany all the way through. Um, but centre back is a really nuanced position. It's really tough to be a centre back. It's tough to be a fullback, but you need to know and you need to understand how to defend. And a lot of players who get repurposed don't have that understanding, which is why it's harder for teams to park the bus successfully. Because if you're going to park the bus, you need a really strong defence. And very few countries, very few club teams have that type of defence. We saw Arsenal defend for their lives against Barcelona in the Champions League final. But I've watched Arsenal all the way through the WSL season. I've watched them, concede to West Ham, concede sloppy, sloppy goals. That was just a momentous performance from Arsenal that day. Like this was a really, really not Herculean, but it was a lot of effort from England today. And I think you kind of have that. You might manage one game where you just are backs to the wall, but it's a hard thing to be that team, and no one wants to be that team anyway. You don't want to play negative football. You don't want to be known for it. You want to play good football. You want to engage your fans. You want the players to enjoy the game as well, and that generally doesn't come from being defensive and just trying to hold on for draws and whatnot. Um,
Yeah, surely, and I think you just delivered one of the best explanations why Switzerland does so poorly in defense because it's all repurposed players. I mean, after Bühler fell out, we had no really experienced center back. We had Stierli, but she actually also started her career as a fullback, so you got that. So the only one who would have been an experienced central defender would have been Laia Ballester from Espanyol, but the coach doesn't fancy her because she played her for the first time against Iceland, and then Iceland had a good game, and they blamed her for it, and so someone needs to be a scapegoat. She ended up being the scapegoat, so she never played again. And I am yet to see if Laia Ballester gets any more games in the Swiss shirt, which is actually a farce. Shouldn't do that to to a 26-year-old player, but young in at heart.
I think it's tough, and if you look at how long it took men's football to develop and grow into whatever it did, women's football, women's football across the world had various different bans facing them. We always talk about the 50-year ban in England. Brazil had a ban. Germany had a ban. There were sort of half bans in other places where women can play, but not yada yada. And then so you throw into the fact that women's football doesn't really start becoming a thing in its own right across some of your traditional footballing countries until, say, the 70s. And still, there's no investment. Everyone is amateur, X, Y, and Z. And it's how long it takes it to break through. And then people suddenly go, oh, women's football, professional. And they try and fast forward and get it to where the men's game is now. And you're kind of, you jump over so much key developmental stages. So I think WSL a few years ago, they said, hey, we're going to be a professional league. Everyone has to be professional. You have to da 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 da. And all the clubs said, okay, we're going to have professional teams. But what clubs were then missing was the foundation that kind of goes with that of having, say, a full complement of medical staff and stuff like that. So you've got a professional team that doesn't have professional backroom staff, that doesn't have enough support staff. And I think that's kind of where we are in terms of the football sometimes as well, is we fast forward, we try and it's not on organic evolution or development. So it's jump over key stages. And so you get to now when you've got attackers playing really good football, commanding really big salaries or comparatively commanding big salaries, but we haven't had the natural evolution of defenders. And that we know defenders, it takes more time to get them through because no one wants to be a defender.
Yes, and also you get different structures. I mean, here in Switzerland, you got the best girls playing with the boys, and no boys successful. We're in the youth ranks of the big clubs. No boys coach, even as feminist as he might be, will play a young girl as a center back. He will always try to bring forward a boy. He will always try to bring forward someone who's taller, who's physically stronger. And so the girls end up playing midfield most of the time, which is good, midfield or attack, which, if they have those natural abilities, is very good for them. But the problem is they don't develop the defensive skills at that level. And then they turn 15 or 16, and then they come over to the boys, to the girls, or to the women's. They actually usually skip the girls' ranks, come over to the women's if they're really good. And then there usually is a 30 something holding on to dear life on that position because she doesn't want to drop out of the team. And so she stays there, and then the girls don't never get repurposed. And also because they have been playing with the boys, usually they're tactically so advanced and technically that you actually want to use them further up front. And then what happens is they go into international football, at least for Switzerland, and then their ability isn't enough, their physical ability isn't enough, and so they drop back again. Cue Viola Caligaris.
Ouch. Um,
It's the truth.
yeah, you know what? I've liked her at Juventus.
Yeah.
Um, I it's tough because we know that girls benefit so much from playing mixed football, and frankly, boys do as well because you get the appreciation for, hey, this is just someone else I'm playing football with. This isn't, oh,
Hmm.
girls can't play. I mean, I spoke to Victoria Pelova back when she was at Den Haag, and back when she was little and time only just in the Dutch squad, not playing. And I sort of talking to her about the fact that she, grew up playing mixed football, as a lot of players around the world have. And she's quite little, Pelova, especially back then. And she said, look, she was never the biggest player. She was never the strongest player. So she had to be the smartest player. And I watched the first game I watched her for was Den Haag versus Ajax, and she was up against uh, Stephanie van der Gracht, who is a very tall, very strong centre back. She played for Bayern Munich. She's played for Barcelona at one point. And this little teenager, this little Pelova, was just had Van der Gracht beaten every time they faced up. And this is like a player who has so much more experience, is sort of twice her size, but she's so good with the ball because she had to learn to be so smart playing in mixed teams, playing with boys. So I think it benefits so much, but then you kind of have this quandary, this quagmire that you talk about in Switzerland, where players aren't given a chance in defence, and then that's skills that they lack. So how do you balance that out? What do you do?
Yeah, very difficult. In Switzerland, we also have another problem. It's always former strikers who have taken over coaching in the youth ranks, and I don't want to be mean, but it's also not always the best. Um, Two more questions now, three actually. But the main question: this isn't the end of Spain's football's history, and it's not the biggest glory of England. Both teams need to develop, but we expected them, and they are deserved finalists. And now the Lionesses just have one because they have Sarina Wiegman or something like that. Now because they have Chloe Kelly. Am I right saying those things?
Ah, complicated. I think if you look at England before Wiekman, they were a semi-final team, right? Like they got to semi-finals under Phil Neville, under Mark Sampson. The football wasn't necessarily good, and you knew that if they did get to the final, they would get beaten. Under Wiekman, they've grown so much, and I think the way that they built momentum through the last Euros is something that they are still putting into the football that they play, whether it be at the 2023 World Cup, whether it be at this Euros. That is the foundation that Wiegman has. And that is a big part of their success, is the belief they got from that, the confidence they got from that, how much they want to play and fight for each other. And that's what Spain say, like play, fight, win. Lucha Paragon, I can't remember it, but Yeah. So, and that's I think what we see from England as well is that play, fight, win, but for each other, for the country, for the badge, all the things you're supposed to say. And that it means that they are all in this era, they are going to be a tough team to face. Whether it's Chloe Kelly making the difference, whether it's because it's Wiegman in the dugout, it's just kind of part of how this team has developed, and now it's just part of this team. It's all woven into the badge and the kit, if you will. Spain, Spain have to develop. Spain need a better coach. I think we've said this all tournament as well. Mehr is not the right coach for them. I think they needed someone completely different from the Jorge Vilda era. She was an assistant to his. She was there at the World Cup. They needed a clean, fresh break. They need someone who understands how to get the best out of the players. I don't think that's Swansea. I've been saying that for a while. Um, and yeah, I think they need to sit with this defeat for a while, as much as it hurts, because they could have won, and they probably should have won. And they need to look at why they lost, and they need to make sure that they don't make the same mistakes again.
So we are saying hashtag Monse raus. It's only good for the German
See,
speakers. Uh,
see.
next question. Are we gonna get those penalties in order at some time? I mean, come on. Now that's nothing. Everyone's talking about it. That's what I hate. When something happens that you then have to do old discussions, and this is clearly one of those where you now need to freshen up the discussion. No, they're not bad at taking penalties. What do you reckon was at fault here? Is it just the
Uh,
nerves, maybe?
I just, I think penalties, depending on who you are, excuse me, because I grew up English as well. And so much in England, the media is always like, they're 50-50, it's a lottery. Oh, you can't practice penalties, it doesn't matter. And then Southgate came in and changed that, and thankfully. I think bad penalties are contagious. And I think the more players who don't convert, whether it's because they take a bad one and it's saved, or because they miss the target entirely, the more times that happens in a tournament, it kind of grows on itself. It's contagious. And every time you see a player take a bad penalty, I think you see more after that. I think we did see some good goalkeeper saves as well in there. I don't want to just say, oh, the penalty takers are all rubbish. We did see some very good penalties as well. Chloe Kelly took two really good penalties, one rubbish one, but two really good ones. Julia Zigiotti took a great one. Lucy Bronze took a solid one with what has apparently a broken leg. I don't, um, but they weren't convincing the penalties largely. Even the ones that were scored, they were a comfortable height. They weren't anywhere near a sort of corner. And I think when you saw players try and nestle into a corner or just get it perfectly inside of the post, they hit the post. But I said it a couple of I think a pod ago, the altitude. That's what I'm blaming. It's everyone's too high up. It's the air's too thin, and that's what it is. But no, I just think they're contagious.
I would
But
blame the Connectis, the Adidas ball. It's
yeah,
not the first time an Adidas ball actually screwed everyone over.
Jubilani.
Yep. Um, broken tibia is how much truth might be there to it.
It depends on the degree of the fracture. She said that on TV after the final, which raises so many questions. She said all tournament, and then I heard it was just the Sweden game. Apparently, no one knew, and then they only found out recently,
And
but they
then
found out before this game.
she bandaged her thigh. So why was it a broken tibia? I am.
I don't know. I think if she like it sets a bad precedent either way. Because if someone is saying, "Oh, if you think you're fine to play, play," that's negligent for me in terms of medical advice. And I think that also means that any coach, not necessarily Wiegman, but any dodgy coach can say, "Look, if Lucy Bronze can play on a broken leg, you can get out there," and it becomes a dangerous, toxic thing to do. I don't want to see. I want to see players saying, "Hey, my leg's broken. I really, really want to play. I think I can help my team, but my leg's broken. Someone who doesn't have a broken leg should be on the pitch, not me."
We're entering NHL in the 70s and 80s territory there with the bloke. Have you ever heard the story of the bloke who cut off his finger to play?
Oof. no.
So he had a broken finger and he couldn't fit it in the glove. So, but he did it with medical stuff, you know. They amputated it before the game, iced it, and did everything. He went and played the game, and after the game, they sew it back on. But this
Or
is so stupid. Why would you do that? Just don't play, man.
I mean, it's like I Dana playing after getting over meningitis, and we know
Very stupid. Yeah.
like it can take weeks and months to fully recover from meningitis. Even if you feel fine, it can affect you. And we didn't see Aitana at 100% this tournament. God only knows why she got player of the tournament. She wasn't Spain's best player. She wasn't even top three.
It's the same with
That's
the
a bug
Ballon
there.
d'Ors. Rapinoe win the Ballon d'Or. Putellas and Bonmati, just people don't know, and then they just vote. It's very
But
annoying.
they UEFA use
Same for Messi.
but UEFA use a technical committee to judge these things. So they're
Uh,
usually quite right. I don't know what on earth. I think unless someone said back in May, "Oh, let's make sure Aitana is player of the tournament." It's crazy. She wasn't at all. She wasn't at her best. She's a world-class player.
you could
She
have
wasn't at her
actually
best.
made an argument for Chloe Kelly.
I mean, Agyman got young player of the tournament,
Yeah,
and she did not play that much football.
yeah, that's it.
But
Poor
important.
Sydney and Iman Benet, who I'm sure were somehow still hoping they would get that one, but they didn't.
There's always
Uh,
next time.
Last question. The favorites thing. I mean, we're seeing it now. Usually, actually, with older coaches. I think in the men's game that thing has evaporated a little bit. Older coaches still do it, but the younger ones actually. But and again, the men's football forces you because it's so much playing time that they have. So you actually usually it's fitness. Will we see with the women's game also move away from that finally?
No.
Oh, I'm sad.
Coaches are idiosyncratic. They like players that they trust, and especially players who've been there when they've called upon them before, even if they're in bad form. They go to their favorites, as we've seen with Sabrina.
Sophie, let's see what will happen to all those teams who are now in between. Uh, can this lead them to aim for higher during the World Cup for the World Cup qualifiers, or do they go back into their lairs for half a year and then next spring everything is forgotten?
Bit of both. I think it's very hard to keep the momentum going with fans from a tournament if you don't do well in particular. Um, I think we've seen that with the teams that have hosted. Certainly not, those numbers generally don't translate for the domestic league. But then the question is on each individual football association or whatever they want to be called, union or federation, if this prompts them to invest more to try and increase the strength of their national team and that. Again, we know these type of developments don't happen overnight. And I think when we talk about how we can improve stuff in England, at the very least, we've got pathways and we've got sort of children coming into the sport. We're not going to know for 20 years if that's worked or not. I think you have to kind of be holistic about development overall for these teams. But they're going to go back into the Nations League, and Nations League means there are loads of opportunities to see your national team home and away, and they get games that should be about the level that they're at. So it should test them. And should give opportunities for new players to come in. And if things haven't gone well this tournament, it could be a time to look at the coaches in charge. Neto out, Martina not in, Pia out, for whoever you want. But
Well, with
it gives you
Neto, we
time.
already know. Unfortunately, he has the backing of the federation president, which never cared for women's football, doesn't know anything. So he's just, yeah, he did well. I mean, no, come on, we don't really care.
It's tricky when we talk about sort of how high ceilings can be, how far teams can go when we talk about international football, because at the end of the day, you still need enough good players. And part of that definitely is about having the structures in place for these players to be their best version of themselves. There needs to be opportunity for them to play when they're younger, to get into the system, to be evaluated, to really have a chance of flourishing. But sometimes we've seen it as well. You need a good generation. If you're not a strong, typically a strong team, a nation, I should say. So you look at kind of as Spain have come into it, England have come into it. What does that mean for teams like Norway and Sweden, who are once strong nations? They're not big nations. They only have so many people in football in the pathways as registered players. What happens when Germany comes along and says, "Oh, we're going to invest so much, and we're going to make sure that our women's team can be on par with our men's"? What does that mean for all the other teams? I think it's really tough. Portugal, I think if you look at how much talent has come out of, say, the men's team over the last 20 years or something, you can say, well, why aren't the women's team at that same level? What are we doing? What more can we do? But it's so much about the foundations and having making sure everything is in place for that. And that doesn't happen overnight. Um, but yeah, and you've got to have players. You've got to have players who have talent, if nothing more.
Yeah, that's the thing, and I think that's the big issue. I think we're doing the women's game a little disservice by only having the next FIFA window being in October. I think we should follow up a little earlier. I understand people need breaks, need time off. Italy starts the league in October. The WSL starts in September only, I think. So you have also the Bundesliga, so you have now a longer break. But yeah, of course, I also don't like those nonsensical after 2 weeks of competition national breaks, but sometimes you need them.
It's tough scheduling. I think as well because of COVID, we had the 2021 Olympics, we had the 2022 Euros, we had the 2023 World Cup, we had the 2024 Olympics, we had the 25 Euros. So 2026 is the first calendar year in women's football that does not have a major tournament. And
Isn't
yes,
there a
the
Club World
Olympics.
Cup?
Oh, that's just I fuck the Club World Cup.
Yeah, but
Um,
isn't there one? I'm genuinely asking.
I honestly can't remember when I should know, but I can't remember. I know people are really invested in getting Club World Cup going, but I try and stay away from it because I hate it. But uh, international tournament at very least. That's first year of a break for some teams.
Oh no, it's
It's
2028. Okay,
oh
so
there you go. That's
finally
felt a
we
bit
get
soon.
we get a little time off.
And it's overdue, and I know that, say, we didn't have Team GB at the last Olympics, but we had the previous one and the Dutch and da 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 da. Like, players need a break, and I think that's even the problem with the Nations League is you have this perpetual high intensity games. You don't get a break. I think we've seen that with England, that you don't have younger players coming through because you've got to be your best team every time because it's Nations League and there's stuff on the line, and that it's
I
a good thing, it's a
I
bad thing. It's
I'm not a big fan of the Nations League for two things. With the men, I think it's just eradicated the young players having chances. Because the first edition, UEFA basically begged every country not to send their best. That's what they did. I mean, it's now on record. Cristiano Ronaldo didn't play in the group stages. A lot of older players were taken out, so you got some youngsters in. But since then, everyone's been playing with the main team because it's still football. It's still all about money. Come on, not every national team player is rich. I mean, they are usually, but those victory bonuses they get, those 10, 20,000 quid, they just like to have them, and especially coaches, they want to have good track records, so they will not try something new. They will not use the Nations League as cannon fodder. So you lose the friendlies, and I actually was always a big fan of friendlies. I think they have their space and their place. And now in the women's game, worse is like if you get a team like Switzerland, or maybe even like a Belgium or a Portugal, so they're not strong enough to stay in Group A. but they are too strong for Group B, for League B. And then, yeah, it's just nonsensical. So you have 1 year where you just don't really get challenged, and then you gotta have a year where you just get battered, and it's
Yeah.
just and now with those, the worst thing is those now defining the qualifications for tournaments makes me just angry. I think this is one of the reasons Switzerland might not make it to the World Cup. It's not the only reason, and I actually get a lot of flack here in my country for that, for saying that all the players should enjoy this Euro Cup now, because I actually think we might not qualify for any other tournament for the next 4 to 6 years.
Well, I mean, the expanded World Cup helps, especially as UEFA gets so many slots.
But
Uh, I,
yeah, the 32 you mean, yeah. But are they also aiming at 48 for the women? No. Are they?
I mean, if Infantino has his way, yeah. If
Jesus Christ.
Infantino has his way, it would be 100 teams in each. I think there's good things and bad things about the Nations League, and I think everything you said is absolutely true. And I think again, it's that push of this is what men's football does. This women's football has to do exactly the same. That's what we have to do. And I think there was another way of changing qualifying because obviously you look at one qualifying campaign, England absolutely smashed like Latvia 20-0. They had like North Macedonia, like they were scoring stupid numbers because there wasn't
But back in the 90s, there was the same thing with the men's football. So
yeah.
sometimes you just need to be patient. I'm sorry, I didn't want to stop your point there, but
I know that's
that
fair.
annoys me because with the men's, they didn't change it. The qualification system is still not dependent on the Nations League, and they know exactly why. So, but carry on, sorry.
I think there's another way of doing it and having it two-tiered makes sense. But then, as you said, when you expand it into the Nations League, you have teams who are too good for one and not good enough for the other, and they bounce up and down. It doesn't help them. I think the only thing I would say in terms of nations, the things I like about the Nations League are the sort of the third tier teams aren't getting bad, and that gives them chance to grow. And I think a lot of the, sort of the second tier teams as well, they have better games and it helps them develop. Um, and I think with the playoff structure for the Nations League, it does have it is a little bit open, maybe a little bit. It's not as country. I mean, it's still the favorites, but I think it has its good points, but it has its bad points. And I remember hearing someone earlier this month saying, "Oh, Spain won the World Cup and then they won the Nations League." And I think Nations League is the most pathetic Mickey Mouse trophy. Can you not put it on like, oh, if Spain win the Euros after winning the Nations League, oh, they've done so much. And you go, no, the Nations League is bullshit. Okay, like it's nice for the teams to get to the final. It's bullshit. Don't put it on par with the Euros. Don't put it on par with an actual tournament that is hard. No.
It's still very important with the men's. Portugal won it twice, so it's very important there. But anywhere else, I agree.
Fair. It's nice if you can celebrate a win and you're on a team that generally wins stuff. It's just again, I think people trying to give to the Nations League winners. No, so they just won the World Cup. The Nations League is bullshit.
I think, yeah, I think it's going to be tough. I mean, still, I can't find anyone who can explain to me the qualification method or mode for the next World Cup. So it's
I
the Nations League, but it's still something else, and it's
Yeah.
very convoluted. But what we know is that Switzerland would need to top their group and then win 2 playoff games, I think.
I think everyone gets a shot at it. Even if you don't top your group or if you're in League B, there is something. I forget there is the playoff system does mean that everyone has a chance, basically. Or on paper, everyone has a chance. Which is how we saw, Wales get to the Euros. They came through the playoffs.
Yeah, speaking of Wales, England, maybe let's take also some Scotland into there. Honestly, Ireland and Northern Ireland, I'm not too familiar what's going on there, but um, I've been seeing those British teams, English, Scotland, also Wales, and youth ranks, and they have not been too promising. Are we seeing a little dip there in quality and maybe development?
Again, I think it's generational, right? Like you need to have good players. Um, I think it's funny because you can go through different World Cup squads and Euro squads, sort of under 19, under 17s, and some players you see, you're like, ah, there's Patrick O'Hara winning the U17 Euros. Hmm. But then you look at other players and you're like, hmm, well, she disappeared. Or oh God, she was like the best player at that time. Where did she go? I think it's tricky, and I think especially when it comes to teams like Wales and Scotland and Northern Ireland. Sometimes those teams benefit, and I need to be very careful with my wording here. Sometimes those teams benefit. We see that on the senior side, of being able to call up players who weren't necessarily born in their countries, but are eligible to represent those nations. And that generally doesn't happen until you start declaring for a senior squad. And if you look at the Wales squad, the Scotland squad, the Northern Ireland squad, or even the Republic of Ireland squad, which is not part of the home nations. They are, different island is island. But again, there are a lot of English-born players in those squads, and likewise Jamaica, because we had the Windrush generation, and you've got those of Jamaican descendancy who were born in England but eligible to play for Jamaica. We see that a little bit later, and you've got Drew Spence, Becky Spencer, Jade Bailey Gale, loads. Um, but I think a lot of it can be you don't see those teams come together until they're a bit older, or even just some players they need to be a bit older to develop, and especially when you consider the age that kids are getting into academies in women's football. It's a lot older than on the men's side. So again, sometimes it takes a little bit longer. Those players have to develop. They have to kind of cut their teeth at senior level. Loads of factors. And sometimes you just don't have the strongest generation.
That's funny you mentioned Jamaica. We actually have two Jamaican national players now joining the Swiss league and doing some yeah some well, one has already done some damage. It's Kayla McKenna. I don't know
Yeah.
if you know her. Is she
Yeah.
also British? No,
No.
she's American, right? She's
Off the top of
American
my head,
born.
yes.
But
I'm
then we
getting
have Paige Bailey Gale
there you go. Yeah,
joining.
she's
She's
yeah,
British
she
born. She's
London.
Newcastle girl. She
Yeah,
played
so
for Newcastle, but a London girl, like yeah, Arsenal. She
yeah.
at the Arsenal youth. What can we expect from her?
I remember watching her when she was a teenager. She's quite good. I haven't seen her for a couple of years, to be fair, because I don't see much of Newcastle these days. She's good at getting in behind. I think she just needs to be a little tighter on a lot of her stuff. But she's good at getting in behind. She's got quite good attacking instincts. She's a good kind of offensive player, and I think probably the Swiss League's a good level for her.
Yeah, so she'll join Rapperswil, who's actually last place in last year's league, but they have now invested. And that's the next point I'm gonna talk to you about. They are investing in what we're seeing in Switzerland is everyone's screaming for more money. Well, now the money's here, and you know what they're doing? The
Putting it in the wrong place.
Yeah, first of all, but that's always been the case. But they're getting in mediocre players from abroad. It's
Well,
not. I mean, England really got lucky with the Brexit thing. They got unlucky because they can't get the good play. Yeah, I know, but we talked about it. They can't get the good players at times, but that also stops them from getting just a whole lot of rubbish, and then forces them to use some of the natural born players, doesn't
that's
it?
one way. That's one way of looking at it. I
The only
think
positive thing.
there are a lot of good players and coaches and backroom staff who don't qualify, who might be like the next best player in the world, but if they don't quite have the right points, uh, they don't get in. And I remember talking to someone at a championship club, and they said the coach we really wanted, he or she, they didn't have enough points. They weren't, we couldn't bring them in, and someone else got that coach.
It
And I
actually
know like
goes
loads of
further. I
teams.
know from a bloke who's actually an expert in his kind of athleticism training, and he couldn't get in.
Yeah.
So it goes through the whole back
Oh,
stuff.
it's horrible. Um, I, oh God, I don't, I, Brexit can fuck off. I hate Brexit and I hate the reasons for it and
Come
what it stands
on,
for.
Nigel is still everywhere on all media, showing his smug little face.
I mean, one of my favorite things that's happened in England recently, and this was a year or two ago, was that woman throwing a milkshake at his face. Um, because I'm not gonna advocate for violence. I'm not a violent person, but throwing milkshakes at fascists, I can get behind.
The
I can
only
get
thing
behind
that
that.
annoys me about that is the dry cleaner will be paid by your taxpayer money anyway.
Yeah.
But it would have been anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah. Next time, throw a pasty at him like you did at Cameron.
Yeah. Someone got egged way, way back, like in the 90s, someone got egged. Yeah, it's not violent. I'm on board with it. But you know, it's I think I think teams are always gonna look, doesn't matter what country you're in, doesn't matter what league it is, they are always gonna look further afield and think, oh, if we just had, you know, an English attacker or a French defender, whatever. Like, oh, that's what we need. Even if they're not necessarily the right fit for the team or even a good player, there's just something about it's almost like a status symbol, right? Like you want to have a Rolex. You don't care if you actually check the time. You want that. Like, yeah, that's what we've got.
That's actually a nice way of looking at it. For me, in my case, it's like I'm really torn because I think the teams are doing the football a little disservice because sometimes they're also getting like 17-year-olds from Greece or something who aren't better and they aren't ready. If you get a 26-year-old who knows how to play football, I understand. Even if she's not the best for 1 or 2 years, maybe she'll get you over a hunch or something like that. But what really annoys me is why I'm torn is that at times I see they try to get the young Swiss players and they just say no because they don't like to travel or they are not willing to put in the work for the smaller wages that they can get. And I really do understand at some point what they mean with that. The other part is like, girl, you're 18, you're 19. You say this is your dream. Please take the hit. If you take the hit now, it will pay off later. I mean, we had a generation of players who at times moved country every year just to find a club that was willing to pay them just a starving wage. But they wanted to play, and that's why they became your idols. And now you are here with the full bell. You get the full kit, everything. You're doing all right. You're all maybe sometimes even at 1,000, 2,000 quid. I know it's not much in Switzerland, but you're 18. You still live with your parents. They would provide you with a home. Just go there, play. Do you want to play? Play. And then sometimes they say no. Then they go to a second Bundesliga or to Austria or maybe to a second French league, and then they play there for 300 quid. You know, just because in France it's cheap and you don't lose face if you're playing for 300 quid in France because no one knows that you're still on a starving wage. And in Switzerland, you would have been at a mediocre wage, but people would know that you're not making the big bucks.
I think pride plays a part. I think there's a lot in it. Like I think sometimes, and it's a big problem in English football for a long time with some of the money in the Premier League. We see the men's side seeing it a little bit in women's football. English players don't like going abroad. That isn't all of them. That's some of them. Some of them don't like going to a culture they don't know. They don't like the idea of having to learn another language. That's not just an English thing. There's one player I've got in my mind who I'm not going to say her name, really prominent footballer, could have gone to France, could have gone to Lyon, decided not to because she did not want to learn French. Um, French is hard, by the way. I get it. Whereas I mean, I remember watching so many Scottish players go to Damallsvenskan and like post like all their like they're like together they go to their Swedish lessons a couple of times a week, or like Kellen Knight in Australia when she was at Turbina Potsdam, she learned German because she needed to. And I think that's something you see so much of being women's football, of those who travel, is they do try and assimilate. But the other side of that is if you do travel, if you are willing to leave, sometimes it's you get another culture. You grow as a person off the pitch, and that can be really appetizing to players. I, I'm not a lover of France. I'm English. That's just how I am. But I can imagine players being like, I could go and live in France. That would be so, and it makes you grow as a person. I think there's also the side of that in football of if you're bringing in, if say you're Swiss and you go to Australia, you might learn a different way of looking at football. If you're Australian and you go to Spain, you might learn a different way of looking at football. You might learn from your teammates, they might learn from you. There is so much that comes of traveling, of going elsewhere, of getting a different culture, whether that's the culture of the country or the footballing culture. Because you think about how you must grow up playing football in Spain, compare that with how you'd grow up playing football in Germany. It's so different. And you get to learn that if you travel. So I understand the traveling. But I also understand there are so many players out there who get homesick and they don't want to go. And it's scary to be somewhere and somewhere you don't speak the language. It can be
Yeah.
really daunting.
I
It's
always
tough.
tell Swiss players if they because in Switzerland there's a big fetish with the Bundesliga for men and women. And I always tell them, if you're going to Germany, please, please, for the love of God, no, no, that's the meme one. Please, for the love of God, don't join Freiburg. And it's not because I don't like Freiburg, but the problem is Freiburg is so close to Switzerland. It's
Yeah.
basically Switzerland, almost mentality-wise. But the thing is, if you're homesick, if you're having a bad day, or and so on, in an hour you're at home, and you won't grow because each time there's something to face, you'll just go home, and you'll be home for 2 days, and then you'll go back, and that's just not the way to grow. And yeah, uh, it's, it's just you need to if you want to go abroad, first of all, make sure you're inevitable. Be good at the Swiss League because if you're very mediocre here, I don't know why you're going somewhere because you'll just embarrass us as a league and you'll just embarrass yourself. Then you'll end up in a second or third tier team, and yeah, it's no good to anyone. And the second thing is try to bite through, as we say in German.
I mean, I think it's interesting because you look at, say, Austria 10, 15 years ago, a lot of Austrians went to Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich had like an Austrian fetish. They all went to Bayern Munich. Very few broke through. But then from Bayern Munich, they went to SC Sand, FSC Frankfurt. They went to other teams because they were then used to being in Germany. Which again, not that different from Austria, slightly different dialect, but not that much of a change. Whereas like Wenger and Zinsberger and Schneiderberg, fine, they all stayed, but like your Weisinger and all that, they didn't. But I understand going to the Bundesliga. I think it's near and it's familiar whilst being different. And I think you've got success stories like André and Verti. I think they're good ones to hold up. And they're players who flourished. And I think you see AMC has played everywhere now. And Nia is still such an important player at Arsenal.
Do you think Leah still has place at Arsenal? She's
Yes,
been
I
losing
think
ground.
she has. But what I've ever since I I interviewed Verti, I think in an Arsenal pre-season friendly before she'd actually played an official game for Arsenal. I said, Leah, have you got a minute? Have you got a minute? Because obviously I watched her at Tribuna and thought, oh, she's a good player. And she was telling me about how before she even joined, when she knew she was signing for Arsenal, she got a hold of all the clips she could and she watched her new team and she tried to learn about her new teammates so she would know how to play with them even before she'd even moved and when she was still in the Bundesliga. And I thought in that very moment, oh, she's going to be a fantastic coach. And I think what I would expect to see from Belgium is her transitioning into a coaching role. And I don't, that's not necessarily at Arsenal, but I think that would be a good fit as well. And you look at like René Schlegers was at Arsenal. That's where it's not a bad place. And you obviously like the Arsenal Academy has produced so many players over the years. Everyone has played for Arsenal. But I think there's still a role for her to play in the team. And even if that's limited minutes, I think she also plays a really key role in the back room, in the dressing room. I think she's really well liked. Fans absolutely love her, and I think it's a good place for her if she wants to start coaching there. I think that's she might not leave London. Yeah, I don't know.
That she is. I don't know about that. I know she's got a lot of offers to come into management, not coaching, but into management in Switzerland. Just take over some back room at one of the clubs. Let's see if she takes it. Maybe it will be good money. The thing is, the we're discussing here in Switzerland is if she might retire from the national team because it's been a big high and she's been so fragile physically. So that maybe she says, "Okay, it's been a good run. I leave now," and focuses for 3 more years or something on playing, and then she can get into coaching. Oh, that would be, might be, could be a thing that's happening.
I mean, that's what we saw with Alex Pop, basically. She gave everything she could to Germany for Germany, and she's just getting those last few years with Wolfsburg. I don't know. I think it's such a personal thing with players, and I think they just sometimes it's a case of like waking up one day or coming home from a national team game and thinking, I've given so much. I wish I could give more, but I'm done. This is me. I know my body is saying I'm done. I think we'll probably see something like that with Velsey. It might just be a case of, okay, like I had the Euros at home, I gave everything I could. I captained, I this, that, and the other. I don't think I can keep going. It's a personal thing. Some players just keep going even after they should retire. So
But you really think Pop couldn't have given some more to this team, the
I think
German
Pop
team?
gave so much to Germany. I think she had a lot of highs with Germany. She had a lot of lows with Germany, especially missing out on every Euros until 2022. Um, I mean, the amount of times I've seen Alex Pop bleeding from her head, um, in a Germany shirt. Yeah, I don't think there are any regrets there. I think you
Ah,
just got,
that's why they got the red shirt for this year, so
yeah,
you wouldn't see the blood.
yeah. Well, it
Um,
looks like blood. It's like red blood cells. But yeah, no, weird kit, that one. But I think it's interesting because you kind of saw Julia Brand stepping out into that pop role of trying to do everything, and giving until she had nothing left.
let's see.
So,
Brand's being criticized a lot for her move to Lyon, which is just childish. Honestly, it's just childish.
for criticizing her or moving to Leon.
No, criticizing her.
Yeah.
Moving to Lyon is like the thing you do if you think
Yeah.
you're one of the best. You go there, but it's the same they did with Bale when he went to Real Madrid. They did with Hazard, although with him they were right, maybe.
Uh, Tricky. I I didn't. Bland had a strange time at Wolfsburg. I don't think it was the best club for her, and I'm glad that she's trying something different. I hope she does well. But she definitely I think endeared a lot of new fans to her this summer.
Before we leave this discussion, help me out. Women's Champions League qualifiers, Champions Path.
Oh, God.
The young boys will face Apollon ladies. Should be doable, but the young boys have taken so many hits in the squad now, and they haven't replaced them. But is Apollon, the last time we saw them in Switzerland was 3 years ago. Zurich battered them. Are they still the same? Do you know?
They're not the same as they once were. I saw them against Benfica in not quite Lisbon. Um, they got absolutely slaughtered. I think I think their experience might play a part. Um, but I think that one's kind of open, if I'm being honest, because I know that young boys have played relatively well. But as you say, you've lost a lot of players. So I think you just have to kind of see how it goes, and it's experience, if nothing more.
And then the other one is a little closer to home, not too close though. Hibernian and Fortuna Hearing. Might they be maybe one step too much, the winner out of that game for the young boys, or even the loser?
Um, it depends how they play. I mean, I've seen upsets in that round of the Champions League before. Hips hips are actually pretty strong, comparative to the Scottish Women's Premier. Fortuna Hearing, um, they're not the team they were, and I think we've seen them get knocked out early. So I think those are two interesting games, and I think then the final itself could be well, have a sense for it. But there are a lot of very wonky groups in the Champions League qualifying, but that one I feel is actually kind of open. Could be
Help me
interesting.
out with Hibs. Glasgow FC, we've been watching for the past 2 or 3 years. They played Swiss teams a couple times. Servette actually twice or 3 times. Um, I th how is Hibs compared to Glasgow FC 2 years ago?
It's a good question. Glasgow City 2 years ago. I think they're probably 2 years ago. Probably on par. That's it. They finished the season really strongly. The Scottish Women's Premier League really opened up. At one point, it was Glasgow City and it was Celtic and it was Rangers and then Hibs just showed that they were better. So you know, yeah, I think it'll be a good game if nothing more.
We'll see, we'll see. I'm really, really torn here, and I'm getting out of my depth when it comes to those teams. I mean, these are happen to be three teams I know, but not too well. But then looking into the possible opponents also for Grasshoppers, I think although those guys have been hitting the market, so they should be more all right than the young boys, which played Inter Milan with Lina Magul. They had a 4-3, but it was a good game, but it was not the Inter Milan you'll see. It's just like the AC Milan I showed on my channel yesterday. It was far from being the strongest team. It was a lot of young girls. Well, we'll see. Well, Sophie, oh no, we got one quick thing to say. Uh, there's been an AFCON champion. Just help me out. How can it be that the Nigerian manager leaves Asisato Shuala out of the team until the 76th minute? He brought her on in time. They turned a 2-0 around to a 3-2, but you can't do that, can you?
I mean, how can you take Claudia Pina out? How can you take Alexia Putellas out in the 71st minute of a Euros final and then bring on Claudia Pina that late, or bring on Vicky Lopez in the 89th? Some coaches are, yeah. They turned it around though. Nigeria, they came from 2 goals down. They won 3-2. That's their 10th WAFCON title, and no matter who starts, no matter who finishes, the Super Falcons love the African Cup of Nations. They've only not won 3 editions, and 2 of those they were knocked out by the home nation. They are so good when it comes to the WAFCON. That is where they light up. They play some of their best football, and yeah, I wouldn't have started Ashwara on the bench, but it came good in the end.
The WAFCON and now the Copa America is also taking place. I think it's the final is today or tonight or now while we're
I
recording.
think we've got another day, and then it's the semi-finals, and then the finals
Oh,
are in
okay.
a couple of days. We still
But
got a
but
bit.
those two tournaments, how do they compare to the Euros? We've heard the Copa America players complaining that there's zero infrastructure. There's still a long ways to go. And what about Asia? Do they have a cup that's kind of okay?
Yes. So every WAFCON, like 4 back-to-back WAFCONs, and we're partway through, are being held in Morocco. Uh, I don't love that, but I do appreciate there is a lack of infrastructure in parts of Africa. And of course, it gives Morocco a good home boost. So when they were 2 goals up against Nigeria, you're thinking, okay, Nigeria are done, but they came back. I think we've heard complaints about the Copa America. I was about to say Paraguay. It's in Ecuador. It's in Quito, I think it is. And so you're also playing at altitude, which isn't great. But it's not so much of a surprise to see a lack of infrastructure within countries we know are so far down the pecking order. You can't just give tournaments to countries that are established. We've seen it a lot of times, giving it to a tournament to a team that generally doesn't qualify, and then that's their route into qualification and playing is massive. It can have a big boost, but you need to actually have some degree of infrastructure in place so you can show some respect to these players they deserve because they don't deserve to be getting the shit, you know? Um, so and the Asian Cup is next summer, not sorry, next year, I should say, not next summer. It's creeping up. It's being hosted in Australia. It bounces around Asia, and it's actually quite a fun little tournament, even though it's usually the same few teams that get to the knockouts. And Australia have loads of scars about losing to Japan over the years. I think it's tricky trying to rank sub-confederational and confederational tournaments. We give a lot of bearing to the Euros because that's European nations who are higher up in FIFA rankings, but then that kind of ignores all the strides that are being made elsewhere around the world. Like if you look at the WAFCON, if you look at the growth of, say, Morocco in the last few years, and a lot of that is money coming in. But if you then look at the sub-confederational tournament in CASAFA, which is the South African, I should say, region, so that's Zambia, Zimbabwe, South Africa, we can see a lot of strength coming out of there because there is specific investment in that region, and that does play out to a degree in the WAFCON. We've seen Argentina kind of come up and Chile come up last few years in CONMEBOL, but it's tricky, especially when you go into countries that don't have much in the way of infrastructure or don't have much in the way of a strong grounding in football. Whereas you think in South America, everyone must be nuts for it. It's still so much sexism and so much abuse that we see across the world. It just so happens that Europe is a little bit further in terms of development, and we kind of in Europe we look down on other parts of the world because they're not as developed. But I think we're just kind of lucky in some respects as well. But we'll see more of South America catch up. We'll see more of Africa catch up. We know that Australia and China and Japan and North Korea and South Korea, they can go deep. That, you have strong teams all around the world. And hopefully in time, they are just getting stronger.
30 seconds left for you to tell me who are the winners and who are the big losers of this tournament.
Spain are the big losers for obvious reasons. And it's a shame because, you talk about, I think it was Aitana said, after they won the World Cup, nothing changed in Spain. So they're still pushing for so much betterment for stuff to improve. And I think a lot of teams across Europe, across the world, are still looking for that. England are the big winners, especially because they bled for 1 minute of the knockouts. I think the fans as well. I think, again, it was the highest attended tournament. Coverage was up, more eyes on the game. It helps the growth of the game, helps people coming in at younger levels. It all helps grow women's football. Yep, and of course Switzerland, who seems to get really into the spirit of it, and then it died out. But yes, everyone like
No,
that.
it's actually a good point because there's been two friendlies this week. Inter Milan visiting the Young Boys. Young Boys wanted to keep it secret, and then 400 people showed up. And yesterday, at the Zurich friendly that we showed, again 500 people were there. So it's actually doing something. Well,
It
Sophie,
does. It makes people hungry
thank you
and
very much
interested.
for your expertise during this tournament.